Welcome to Starseed Gathering Podcast, hosted by Annabelle Ivaya, deep soul healer, author, and spiritual mentor. We invite you to dive into ascension, spiritual awakening, and psychic abilities together. With this beautiful guest of ours today, be sure that your senses, your consciousness, and your level of awareness will rise for your highest good. Open your heart. Let your higher self show you what is the most important part of this conversation for your path at this moment, and leave anything that doesn't resonate behind. If you feel like you need any support at any time, please reach out to me or my guest so that we can support you in your spiritual path. With so much love, enjoy the content and talk very soon. Hello, beautiful souls. Welcome to Starseed Gathering Podcast. I'm super excited to have someone special with me today, Angela, who is actually working in healing, but with animals, something that we haven't had a lot in this podcast. So that's very interesting to have her with us. She works mainly with horses. She's going to talk to you about how she does that and about her organization, where she's at. And I'm super excited to have you here, beautiful soul. Let's, welcome you here in this space, beautiful Angela.
Thank you. Thank you, Annabelle. I'm so excited to be here, and the herd's here with me in spirit. So they're happy to have their time on camera too. But yeah, thank you. It's an honor to share space with you and get to intertwine our stories. So yeah, thank you.
You're so welcome. It's such a pleasure because we've worked a little bit together. I think it was last year somewhere. I can't remember exactly the date, but I remember sometimes I could see that the horses were behind you and they were like around, and I was like, oh my God. And interestingly, when I was in Mexico, because in Mexico, there's not the same laws as in the States and Canada. You don't have to put them in somewhere that's, they can be anywhere. You can walk and they're just beside you. And I have actually connected to a lot of horses while I was in Mexico. And I could feel their sensitivity. Even more so, like if I share, I had, a relationship that ended. And then I walked past, I was kind of sad. I walked past those horses. There was one, was like, I don't know how you call that, but he was like, when I was running after me, right, to come and see me at the gate. And I was like, he was doing that every time I was walking by. But that time he had another boy, like a male with him. And they both came forward and they just lowered their head at my level. I'm full of chills, and I was crying because I was sad of this relationship that had ended, and just didn't know where my life was gonna go. I didn't know if I was gonna leave Mexico, when you're like having those those life questions, right? And I could feel like I stayed with them and cried a bit, and then I could feel the vibration of their energy just telling me like, you're gonna be okay, and we love you so much, and breathe, Annabelle, breathe. And it was just so loving. So I can't wait to hear how it is for you to work with them, because I've always been very impressed by their stature, by their energy, but I didn't know horses. I haven't grown, beside horses. So I'm very excited that you talked to us about how it is for you to work with them.
Oh gosh. Thank you for sharing that story. Like I felt that. I even like teared up a bit. I mean, they're just every animal is a beautiful healer, and they all carry their own vibrational frequency. And so lately I would have events at the organization I started, and I would call it equine meditation, which is a lot of what I do. But really what started what kind of came along with the package deal is also like goats. I have like goats that do the healing work, and chickens, and I have Great Pyrenees dogs that actually their job is to protect the herd. So, for a while I was so focused on the equine part, which is absolutely phenomenal. And then they all chime in and they're like, we're all healers. They just in different ways, some can curl up in your lap. Horses, they try, some might try. But specifically with horses, someone once told me, and it made a lot of sense to me, that they vibrate as high as dolphins and whales in their vibrational frequency. And they're just this pure channel. And everyone asks, can all horses do this? And the answer is yes and no. It's kind of like us. But if they're in a captivity situation where they're looked at with criticism, even if they're taken care of, and they have what looks like on paper a beautiful life, if they're not truly given the freedom to go be outside and have at liberty time where they can go release the energy they absorb, then it's harder, for them to maintain that pure connection. But even one of the horses I rescued that I started doing this with, because I went up to Canada, we were talking about that a little bit before, up at a retreat called Equinicity with Liz, Mitt, and Ryan. And I went there for the first time in 2013 when I was suffering a lot in my life and was really being called to make a massive life change. And when I went up there, I just had this massive awakening with her herd of horses. And they're on 350 acres of sacred land, and they can come and go as they please. There's no pens or anything. But really, most horses can do it. But again, even the horse I rescued, which I was kind of speaking to, he had come from like the show world. And it took him over 8 months to really integrate back into his divine being fully, if that makes sense, because he had to kind of let go of that hurt that was put on him. So I can go any direction with this and I'll talk for hours. So you're going to, maybe ask me a specific, but yeah, so I have a lot of stories I can share about how they helped heal, but the other animals did want me to share, like it's them too. But horses are definitely like my heart, they're all my heart. But I get I've had a lot of very unique experiences with meditating with horses specifically.
That's so beautiful. And I think a lot of us, yeah, we when we're very highly sensitive, we connect a lot, most of us connect a lot with animals. And how beautiful is that? I know that when I do my healing, like my dog, if I have someone in person, she's always around. But if I have somebody in person, she's going to be under the bed. She's going to be like, I know she's helping somehow
Yeah.
with her energy, right? And I'm just sensing that horses have so much power just radiating. Like I'm just saying, like their heart space so big that it can probably heal like 25 times faster or stronger,
Yeah.
with so much power within them. How do you work with them? How does it work if somebody, do you work one-on-ones? How does it work? Explain to us how it works. Beautiful.
Yeah, I know that's a great question. And what you just described with their heart shot, I mean, gosh, it's just Heart Math is an institute that does a lot of research around the energy, and they're proving the power of our heart over our brain. And they studied the energy field around horses, and it went out 250 feet. But really, they were like, that's as far as our equipment can measure. And they were
Mm.
like, it really goes out infinitely. And I do all different types of modality of sessions. I have adult private sessions, and that can be at our sanctuary. So I have a sanctuary called 16 Hands of Love, and it's the number 16. And you measure horses in hands. So the first rescue I got, when I came home from Equinicity and was like, okay, this is what I'm called to do. And I found my first rescue. His name's Dakota, and it's with a T, and it means friend to everyone in the Native American Sioux Native American language. And he picked it. So I was given the vision to start 16 Hands of Love after my awakening. And I offer through that the private sessions there with the animal sanctuaries. So we have acreage and we have a lot of um, nature that has not been rearranged by man. And we don't realize how important that is. And, where you are, you have that. But I'm in Texas, I'm like, you know, um, we're about 25 miles or so outside of Northwest Houston in a little town called Hempstead. So out there, though, we do have unstructured acreage and land where it's just true nature. It's not all cut and mowed all the time perfectly. So you can do a private session where you're connecting with the earth and the land and the trees. Because once you awaken to that, everything's just talking to you all the time. And so, or you can even do virtual sessions with them because time and space doesn't exist to animals. So a lot of them, people will tell me like, I'm feeling this, horse, and even the horses I've rescued who are in spirit now really come through still. I do a lot of animal communication work with them too. I mean, you can't help but not to once you like are integrated into it. They're just like in your head. Um, and I work a lot with children. And um, one of them I was working with for a while was autistic and would come out and we would touch all the trees. And by the time, we got to the horses, I would always invite them. They're out at liberty in their pasture. And I'd say, I had 3 at the time, and I'd say, who wants to work with us? And every time it takes about 30 minutes, and it's not because they're delayed, it's because we're so dense. Um, well, yeah, they always tell me that one will come up though on its own and present itself and wait at the gate to have a
Wow.
session. Yeah, and this little boy would sit on their back, and it's bareback. We always think we have to be touching them or riding them, like therapeutic riding, and not that that isn't valuable, but it does take away some of the authenticity of the connection when you have an expectation of an outline, like I'm putting a saddle on, I'm doing this, and there's no really consideration for asking the horse, how is it feeling? Is it up for that? Um, so when I do
Mm.
sessions, they're very organic, they're very connected with the animal space. And when we would put the little boy who would sit up on the horse bareback, you could just see the horror line. Like it was just beautiful. Like this child that was having a really hard time, it would just be like, whoa, in the light, but their heart spaces are massive. And when we sit on them, we're over kind of their heart chakra. But you
Mhm.
don't have to sit on them. Heart math proved that just touching them, just being in their space, um, is phenomenal. And I grew up writing. I was very fortunate that I had a lot of unstructured time and I got to have that connection before I began the showing. Um, and then I sold my horses to go to college, but I got back into it in 2013. And so we offer kind of all, and then we also do like healing events where you can come out and we'll do sound bowls with the horses out in the pasture, or
Wow.
just kind of women's groups. So it's all different modalities. But I can share with you some specific things that they've done with me, especially in Canada. So it's really, like I said, I could talk for hours.
It's so amazing because I'm very clairvoyant and I feel a lot, so and I can actually feel and see so much energies as you talk about them. And they were saying when you were talking that you were a horse ambassador, like you were like here on earth to really remind people that they're not just huge work beings, right? Because they've been used by humans so much for work and hard work, right? We know that. To be able to see that some people can have this connection with the this energy, right? It's like a monad presence of horses that you connect to and that you can just bring forth what they can do in more of a soft energy way that they're showing me like, yes, it's a big animal, but it's not only because it's big that we have to connect to them. It's also because they have a big heart. It's also because they can heal. It's because they have a lot to teach us. That's kind of what I'm hearing.
Oh gosh. Yeah, you made me cry a little bit. Like, oh, I got tingles all over. Yeah, they call me they're like they're the horse human, like but I am it was just so phenomenal how this all came about in my life. And it was just undeniable. I was a first grade teacher for a long time in the public school system. And, but I had looked at volunteering with, like doing therapy with horses, but it wasn't really quite a fit. And then a lady who was doing the equine side said, go check out this retreat in Canada. And I did. And it was just like, it was like the floodgates opened. Everything just fell into place, from getting a flight and getting money. And it was just like, you are going. And I had this massive awakening with her horses. One would just vibrate on me. If you lay on a healing table, she would just go on the right side of my brain all the way down to like here and up, over and over for 45 minutes. And, if you go into fear, you can be like, oh, they're going to bite. No. You have to get through all that. And she was opening the right side of my brain. I mean, it's just really phenomenal, the things they do. But I came home from that retreat and was like, okay, how may I serve? And then it all was just downloaded into me of what I'm doing now. But you're right. I mean, I'm very much an advocate for them. I'm their voice. Everything has just fallen into place to start to do what I do. Their abundance comes. We are a nonprofit, so people do donate. And I don't know anything about running a nonprofit, but the goats were like, this is what you're doing. So that's a whole other story with them. But it's just, when you're meant to be doing what you're doing, it just works. And for them, they've just done so many amazing healings. And I had to do like 25 hours for my case studies to become an equinistic healing practitioner. And it was just phenomenal, the things they would pick up on. But it's not just physical healing. Like, I mean, they can run Reiki, because Reiki is a universal light source energy. So we give it that term, and there's different modalities, but they absolutely run that energy, and they can pick up on many things within your body. Like, people would show me, they'd be sniffing on their belly and they'd pull their shirt up and they'd have a massive scar, or, just all different things. But they're very intentional, emotional, divinely connected, like wisdom speakers, as I hear them saying. Like, it's wisdom from the herd that they want to share, because they're happy to do the work. Some of them, they're like, not all, like carrying us on their backs. Some of them do want to have jobs and things like that. But it's very important that we learn to start asking, because it's both. It's not just my agenda. They always tell me invitation over expectation. So, so yeah, it's really phenomenal. Like the downloads and it's almost like you can tap into just a very direct, clear channel to just source. Like it's just, it's mind blowing. Yeah.
Oh, I love that. And what were your experiences at the personal level with them? What was the main things that yes, there's this business, right? This calling that was like bigger than you, I guess, that you were like,
Yeah.
okay, let's do it. This is my way. And the fact that it seemed that like all of the pieces of the puzzle just came along when needed, which I really love how inspiring this is, because this podcast and everything that I do is always helping people to connect to this intuition, right? And not block it, because you have no idea where it's going to bring you, but it's going to be so beautiful, this path ahead. So what would you say that the horses, like that your connection to them, and you can include the other animals, of course, that you work with, like what's been the biggest learning, the biggest touching moments that you had, maybe?
Gosh, there's been many. I had a hard time getting pregnant. I couldn't get pregnant for like 5 years when my husband and I were trying, but I was right at the time of deciding, this path. So I was like, horse or baby. And it was very clear to me to go, like, that all just fell into place. So I had a lot of time before and then I did end up getting pregnant naturally, of course, after I followed my path and got the first horse. And with that, there was one thing that happened, because I probably had the first horse that I rescued for maybe a year or so before I got pregnant. And we were at a private barn, and she had these high school kids that would help feed. And I didn't know I was pregnant, but he just started acting like very aggressive towards other people when I was around. And the kids were kind of like, what's going on with Dakota? Like, he's just acting really different. And sure enough, I found out that night that I was pregnant, and he was able to see the difference in my energy. And the minute that I told him, like, you're safe, you're not going anywhere, like, this is just going to add to our life, he just went back to like his happy little self. Because
Oh, how
something,
nice.
yeah. And I would meditate a lot with him when I was pregnant with my son. And I would just, go share. Their biggest thing is just come share space with us, like come share space. So I've had a lot of meditations and a lot of very phenomenal, like from the Kundalini breath of fire with a horse that I didn't even know what was happening to me. But I think one thing I was just telling my son the other day was that we were talking about how time and space doesn't exist for animals. And I told him, I said, one time I had been away at the retreat while I was pregnant in Canada. And when I came home, I was so happy to see my horse, and or not mine, because they're not really mine, but I was so happy to share, to just go back and like share with him all that I had learned. And he didn't really want anything to do with me. And I was like, my little ego was a little hurt. He kept kind of like walking away. And so I was like, all right, I'm going to heed what he's trying to do. So I sat down by a tree in his pasture, because again, of course, he's at liberty, he's loose. And I started meditating, and I had my eyes closed, and my intent was to just connect. And all of a sudden I felt him like put his head by me, and I felt this beautiful like breath. And then I heard like his tail swish, and I smelt him. And, I was like all giddy, because I'm like, oh, he came over, and I opened my eyes, and he was not there. He was hundreds of yards away. Like, he wasn't even near, like, I don't know distance very well, but I'd say like a quarter of a mile or something. Like, he was not anywhere close. And I was like, huh. And that was such a profound experience for me, to prove like they're really there. We don't have to have that touch. But what ended up really coming to fruition from that was, after I had my first child, there was a moment in the thick of things within the first year. I remember I was talking with a lady that was helping me through things, and I just, all of a sudden, this sadness and guilt came up, because I was like, I don't have the time that I used to have to go be with the horses, that I had, because I had a baby, and that was my priority. I of course went and saw them, but it wasn't anything like before I had a child. And I didn't even realize that I was having a little bit of this guilt come up. And then all of a sudden it was just like downloaded into me, like boom. And he reminded me of that moment. And when I was meditating in the pasture, and he's like, I want you to know that you're always with me, and I'm always with you. And he was like, I've shown you this too that day. He's like, so no, don't feel guilty because you're not with me. He's like, because you are. I showed you this already. But I didn't
Mm.
realize the magnitude of what that would mean to me until I went through that moment. And that's, there's many like that, but that was probably one of the most profound, of just when you just, and you feel at peace, and they know. And they're always just they're always there to talk with us and to share their wisdom. It's just, are we willing to be present and listen? Instead of the horse whisperer, people should probably call it the horse listener.
Right.
Because they're really the ones doing the talking. But yeah, there's many I could share with you, but that one came to me, so it must have been meant to be to share. It was just um the depth of their love is just like beyond words. I can't even really put words to it sometimes. So,
Right, right. And there's something about animals, because they don't speak, right? Of course, when you're psychic, you can hear things,
right.
but there's not this conversation like we both have, right? And there is something once you allow their energy to touch your heart, when there's this connection with an animal or many animals, it's like it's very undescribable, that the bond and how beautiful this connection can be. And I love the timelessness of this, right? Because as you said, like I'm working also with animal healing and animal communication, and it's like they have so much to share, and they're just wanting us to stop seeing us just as this physical body and this incarnation, where we also are multidimensional, just not just them, right?
Yeah,
Just
right.
feels so easy to like to see that we have different levels of existence and consciousnesses, and but at the same time we are also able to connect wherever we are with the beings that we're ready to welcome in our life. So I think it's beautiful that you've found each other. It really feels like a really beautiful reconnection. You probably had many lifetimes working with them, as I can
Yeah.
probably feel, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Um, another one's coming to me too. This wasn't a horse I had a very big connection with. I was renting at another barn, and the barn owner had took on these two horses, and I'd only had them in my life for maybe a couple weeks, and one of them got real severe colic because horses can't throw up. So she must have eaten something, and we weren't able to get the vet out. So she was basically passing quicker than we could do anything for. And she also wasn't my horse, so I didn't have, vets actually won't come out and see horses if they're not your horse. But we had volunteers there because I do a lot of volunteer work with what I offer. And I couldn't be there at night because I had my second child at that time. And so I wasn't able to go up there till the next day. And she was laying down when I got there, and we started going into that sacred place with her and connecting, and we were really working on her with some energy work. And she kind of got up for like her last walk, I guess you could say, and then she just kind of collapsed. But I think one of my biggest fears, even though I'm really okay with death because I understand it on a different dimension, but I think having something that large, but when she passed, it was like she was in my lap, her head was in my lap, and then I just felt this magnitude of freedom afterwards. Like you're just really in that space, and I never had experienced that, but it was just like this just magnitude of her soul, like just she was just free, and I didn't feel upset. I felt happy like for her. And she showed me, she was like, we've done this many, many times together, helping each other cross over the Rainbow Bridge, even though I had only met her shortly, but she waited until I got there. She waited literally and then died within 30 minutes after I got there. So it's just when you have that connection with them, they find you, it's just, yeah, the love of their hearts, all animals too, like my goats, even they'll tell me if they want me to have a vet with them, or they'll tell me no, they'd rather not. Some of them want to pass with their friends with them, some don't. um but they're
Wow.
all, I think you can be much more at peace with death when you realize it's not an end. The Native Americans said they cried when we were born and celebrated when we died. um so it just depends. I remember one volunteer said, well, I'm going to cry and celebrate when we had to put one of our horses down. I said, me too. But you just really become much more at peace with things when you start slowing down and listening to them. And you kind of, it doesn't always make sense or look very pretty, some of the things that they choose to heal with us, because they're soul level healing essences in our life, you know. But it's trusting their journey, because it's really not what it seems, like once it's all over, whatever they, even the ones that are being rescued by it, because we're a sanctuary, so I don't foster, rehome, and rehabilitate and all that. But I do work with other fosters who do, and if I can foster some of the outdoor herd protecting dogs, I do. But even then, I'll ask them like, why, what is going on with the dire situation, or seeing you hurting, and they're like, I'm still doing my soul level work. It looks like I'm hurting, and I am, but sometimes that's what I'm supposed to be doing over being in a beautiful home with safety and love, because it's shifting energy and awakening people in different ways. And eventually one day, maybe we'll all, heaven on earth or whatever you want to call it, Garden of Eden will all just exist in this beautiful love that we are, but they're helping to bring us back to that. And their
Mm.
voices are very loud right now. Yeah, they're,
I love that. I love
yeah,
that. It's interesting because my dog has had some issues, lately, and I keep having this message, yes, there's this like you detaching from my hurt and letting this hurt that you feel in your human brain in their connection and like make you like fall into this like, oh my God, is you okay? Are you okay? Type of
yeah,
thing. But also she has her own soul journey on this planet. Like she has her own learnings. My dog is going to be 9.5 years old. She's not two anymore, but she runs like a little younger and maybe she's gonna hurt herself, but she needs to learn that too, that she's aging in this earth plane. And so it's
yeah,
like very interesting to see, they come to a very specific moment in their life. I think all of those beautiful animals because we have so contracts with them, we have so many learnings that we teach each other, and remembering also that yes, they're giving to us, but we're also giving to them. Like it's
yes,
it's a two-way
yes,
street, right? Sometimes we just feel
yes.
like, oh, they're so wonderful, but if we would see ourselves from their perspective, like they're like, I couldn't have chosen better than you.
Yes,
Right?
yes, yes. They tell me that too when I'm like, especially when my kids were younger, I'm like, I'm sorry, I just don't have my personal dog at my home. I'm like, I just don't have that time and space to give you all that I would if I wasn't, raising babies. And she's like, I came here for this. She's like, I knew this. I'm okay with this. Like, let me be. They also tell me too, like they don't experience pain the way we do. They definitely experience pain, but when you can start transmuting that and really going into pain and not giving it an identity, they tell me like we're so caught up in giving pain an identity, going to the future, like, oh, I'm not going to be able to wear those shoes, or I'm not going to be able to go to work, or I'm not going, we think too much about it. We give it too much control,
Power.
whereas
Mm.
they don't tend to do that. They, not to say that they don't experience it at different levels like we do, but for the most part, they're very present with it. And if you try it, like I've worked on myself with pain where I really transcend it, it really can go away if you don't give it an identity, but they're just so, because there was a horse up in Canada, because when they're on 350 acres, you're in these tents at night if you want to be. So you can go be with them wherever they are on the land. And they were all by our tents one night, like her herd of like 15 horses. And she was fostering some llamas. And they didn't want to come near us at all. Like they didn't want nothing to do with us. But my bunkmate was from Wells, and she was doing Reiki on one of the horse's hooves because she had an abscess, and she was, and when they have an abscess, it looks like they've just gone totally lame and dead. So my friend was running Reiki, and she was probably a couple feet away from the horse, and those llamas came right up and were like blowing into what the stream of energy, and it was crazy because they wanted nothing to do with us, but they were so fascinated by this. And then
Wow.
they, like, the minute she was done, they just left. It was really really fascinating. But that horse, watching her labor all over the land, and she was like, quit putting your stuff on me, quit looking at me as I'm hurt, because when you do that, you hold me in that frequency. You have to look at me as I'm well, I'm getting better. And she's like, I'm choosing this, I'm choosing to experience this, and I'm choosing to move around the land. If I wanted to go lay down, I would, but she really taught me a lot about, her name was Winnie, and she was an amazing horse, but she really taught me a lot about how they experience pain differently, and you can body map them and ask like, where are they experiencing pain, and they can show you. But really, we're the ones that are really learning from them. We really are. They've not chosen to be separate. They're, if you think of spirit or whatever you want to call it as a living entity, all the animals in nature make up different parts of it, like organs, and we're missing because we've forgotten and we're choosing to be separate. But as we're awakening, they're really helping us with that. And it's just beautiful to see it, you know, even 10 years ago when I would tell people what I do with like energy healing, they were like, "Oh, what?" And it kind of was compared to me as like when chiropractors came about and people were like, huh? And now it's just accepted. So even in 10 years, I have so many people, especially the children coming out are so, they're just innocent beings too. It's amazing to get to see them with the animals as well. So it's just, it's my gift. It's a gift to me. And it's like, a beautiful give and take, like you were saying.
I love that. I love that. And to go back to what you were saying about, the pain in the animals. I remember when my dog Suki got hurt the first time and I kept sending her healing. And at some point she's like, Mom, can you just stop?
Yes.
Can you just stop? I'm not just only like hurt right now. Can we have fun? Can we play? I'm not
Yeah.
dying. It's just like one knee that's hurting. Oh my God. I was like, all right.
Yes. Yeah,
That's
I
so
had
funny.
a little Jack Russell when I came home when I was in Canada the first time, and I awakened, I had a massive awakening that everything's talking to us. Like, and it as a child and you just forget. Um and so I reawakened, and I remember coming home on the plane, and all of a sudden my little Jack Russell Emma just like popped in my head, and I was like, "Oh my gosh," like she was really cool. But I remember sitting by her and I was learning energy work, and I was like, like pushing it. And she was like, "Oh my gosh," she was like, she's like, "It's very soft. You don't have to like, it's coming naturally." She's like, "You don't have to like beam it all at me." I just remember that was the funniest time. And I was like, "Oh, okay." And she taught me that it's not coming from me, it's coming through me. So that was a funny moment. Like you're saying with your dog, she was like, "Can you just stop?"
Right.
They're actually really funny. I mean, like they have sense of humors just like we do. They have things they prefer and not prefer. And, you know, it's a fun journey.
Oh, animals are so for me, I have had dogs since I'm a little girl, so I've always been very, very connected to them. But any animals, I love cats, I love all of the animals now. But yeah, they make your life so much better. Definitely,
Yes.
definitely. So if people want to work with you, how does that work, Angela? Like, do they go to your website? I guess if anyone would like to share a donation, that would be nice. We'll put the link below too if they want to contribute to your beautiful organization. Yeah, just explain to us how it works to connect with you and have a session and what type of things for those that are maybe less connected to the healing, that me and like what would be the maybe the themes why someone would come and see you?
Oh, that's a good question. Well, to work backwards, it's just put in your heart. Like it's just whispered, like you feel it when you're here. If you're hearing this conversation or it's been on your mind and it keeps coming back and keeps coming back, some people will even see some of the animal. They'll like see, like, I just keep feeling this horse essence, or. So it's really, they always tell me it's the perfect timing. Like you can't miss it if you're supposed to experience it. And if you're not, then you're not. So it's really just, it can be any type of healing though. I mean, Reiki and things like that can be done distant. So horse equine healing can be done distant too. So you could be moving with anything, it's just, if you feel like a yes, like, "Oh, that's intriguing, I want to try that." Like that's them saying, "Come on." So it doesn't have to be any specific thing. Of course, I don't advertise it as much, but I'm very much of a, I don't just work with them, but I did like life coaching sessions. So I'm very much of a spiritual guide myself because I'm learning and I learn through working with people. So you could get some of the things I know, but I help facilitate your connection with them. And then, but it's very much your own unique experience, like I don't tell you what they're saying. I tend to let people bring it to me. It could be if you want to leave a job or if you're wondering about what your gifts are, anything like that. But for people who don't live by me, it would be a virtual session like this over the phone. And I can be out in the pasture with them where they're coming through. And we would set up like a sacred space container for that. But my website, like you said, it's www.16handsoflove.org, O-R-G, because we are a nonprofit. And the 16 is the number 16. And on there, you can go read about my sessions. There's a way to contact me. There's my phone number, or you can, email me. And we just go from there. So you can even go read about the team. I've updated it, so all my new animals are there. And I have the ones in spirit on there too. So you can even just work with them that way. You don't even have to do a session with me. And yes, if you want to donate, we do, they have their abundance, but it always comes back around. If you feel called to give, you get an abundance somewhere else in your life. Like, it's truly just a cycle. So, but I thank you for just letting us share our love. And they come to me for this work. All the goats, the dogs, like, they're very clear that they want to do this work with me. And it's very divine how they are a part of the herd and what we're offering. So, and you can of course do in person if you're in Texas, closer to Houston. Yeah.
Right. Oh, that was such a beautiful encounter with all of the beings. I can feel all of those energies of all of the animals around you wanting to kind of speak through you. And I think they're very excited. They're like, ooh, we're going to have new people to work with. And they're very excited about. It's like if I'm feeling that there's like an opening, so I don't know if you're already busy, but it feels like you're going through a portal of change with a lot of beautiful energies coming forward. So I'm really excited for you, excited for the animals, excited for the people that are gonna dive into it. I can't wait to go to in Texas. I have a friend in Texas that wants me to go and see her. I'm further away now, but it would be really cool to go and meet you and the animals. I would love that.
Oh, we would love it too. Yeah. If it's gonna happen, they'll get you here, like, it's cool. It nudges us. Like, it's always that whisper. It doesn't leave us alone, So I just thank you so much for doing this and allowing people to share their hearts. And it's inspiring to hear other people's stories. And just, thank you. I'm so much gratitude for you for this. So
it's my pleasure. I'm super glad that we had this beautiful conversation. We'll leave all of beautiful Angela's contact information below. If you're wanting to join this podcast, the link, it's a Calendly link. You can book yourself in my schedule whenever you feel like to make a recording. And we wish you all a very beautiful week ahead. I'll see you in the next one. Thank you again, Angela, for your time.
Yeah. Thank you, Annabelle. You have a beautiful rest of your day, and everyone else too.
Thank you, lovely.
Bye.